Hello and welcome to Inside Tennessee Football's practice facility. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. Tennessee, leaving Georgia in the past, turns attention to the final two games of the season, UTEP, Vanderbilt. We met with linebackers coach William Inge, tight end coach Alec Abel, and a handful of players. So let's jump right into our thoughts, starting with the coaches and Noah.
Yeah, William Inge asked about, kind of his assessment now that a couple days have passed of how the linebackers kind of handled pass coverage against Georgia on Saturday. Seemed pretty positive about, he thought that they kind of handled their job and did things overall the right way. Certainly a game where Tennessee was unable to get a lot of pressure, and I think you pinpoint the defensive line for a lot of Tennessee's defensive woes. I mean, you can only expect guys to sit in pass coverage for so long if you're giving a quarterback a lot of time. But, I thought overall that William Inge kind of came away with a kind of a positive takeaway. Pretty positive guy, of course, usually when he's up there talking, but seemed pretty pleased with what his linebackers were able to do. But also talked about, that they're going to have to, continue with eye discipline, continue kind of doing some things differently, squaring up. Talked about the Fab Five, shoulders being one of those, eyes, hands, all that stuff. And it's a group that's been really good for Tennessee this year, despite some injuries. A young group. He said, there's been some times where maybe the lack of experience from guys overall, you see that. But overall, I think he's pleased with that group. And I think he was overall pleased with how they played on Saturday, and doesn't expect really the defense as a whole to maybe have that performance carry over into the next two games, like you mentioned, are very big for Tennessee.
Yeah, and Alec Abel talked about kind of his tight end room, really the three-man show going on there, but recently it's been the two-man show, and he talked about Ethan Davis, obviously a young guy that's third in that rotation, got like 4 snaps against Georgia and did a fine job in those snaps, but he's a guy that hasn't played a lot, and these UTEP games, maybe it will be an opportunity for him to really show off what he can do and kind of put on a show for next year. But when Abel was asked about him, it wasn't a Ethan Davis needs to do this and this to get better. It seemed like it was more of a, well, Tennessee just really likes what they're getting from Miles Kitselman, and Holden Stays, and they feel like they're fitting what they need to do right now, and he's just behind two guys that they really like. And he also kind of built off of that and talked about Miles Kitselman and the job that he's done this year, and I thought it was interesting. He said that's like a 10-year NFL vet type of guy. Like he seemed really confident that Miles Kitselman, with the season he's had, will be able to maybe carve out a role in some shape or form in the NFL and be able to be a reliable target. And he's kind of got the traits of one of those tight ends that sticks around the NFL for a while, where he can do a good job blocking, but he also is a pretty good route runner. He's got good hands. He can be a reliable option for quarterbacks in the pass game, as well as getting dirty and being a run blocker. So we'll have to see what his career ends up looking like, but his coach, Alec Abel, and I think too, like Alec Abel, of course he's going to prop up one of his guys, but he's not a guy that goes up there and just kind of puts everyone on the biggest pedestal ever. So it was kind of like, okay, like he really does think that he actually has a chance, maybe not 10-year veteran status, but like he actually does have a chance to do something at the next level. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But players, what'd you think?
Yeah, Brew McCoy, one of those guys that'll be playing maybe one of his last games at Neyland Stadium. I only say maybe because they could potentially host a playoff game there, but certainly his last regular season game at Tennessee obviously came as a Southern Cal transfer a few years ago. And memorably in that 22 season, made the catch that kind of helped set up the field goal to beat Alabama, and so he's had those moments. But he was asked, today about, is there any disappointment? Maybe the fact that here we are 9-10 games into the season, there's been a lack of explosiveness from this offense, and I thought his answer was good. He talked about it's really not his job to dwell on that, because he doesn't want it to bleed into his preparation, doesn't want it to bleed into how he plays the game. We talked about it the other night at Georgia. This offense may just kind of be what it is right now. This late in the year, I do think the coaches are right. I think the players are right that it's close. It's on the doorstep. We've seen that, really for the last month. But it just doesn't seem like something they're dwelling on right now, and their focus, I think, is in the right place. But a guy, undoubtedly has made a lot of contributions here. And I thought his best quote of the day was, I'm from Southern California, and now when people talk about home, I think of Knoxville, not California. So, a guy that's been here 3 years, and I think has left a really good legacy here. And, certainly has a couple more games here left to continue doing that.
Amari Thomas, another senior, who'll be going through that tee for the final time and playing on kneeling for the final time. They'll need a lot of help to get that playoff chance. I think it is kind of safe to say that this will be the final time for that senior class. But he kind of reflected not only on his career, but just last week against Georgia and how the defensive line played. They weren't able to get much pressure on the quarterback. I don't think they finished with a single sack against Georgia, and that's been a big difference in that game compared to earlier in the year, and even compared when you look at Georgia, where they struggled to protect Carson Beck against Ole Miss. And Amari Thomas said, I thought it was interesting, like, he didn't think they necessarily played bad. It was more of a tip of the cap to Georgia and what they were able to do to protect. And maybe there are some things different on film that, but not making excuses, but they'll have to adjust maybe better next time. But he seemed to kind of maybe look towards the Georgia side of things more than Tennessee. And that's not to say that he doesn't think there's not areas to improve. Like, he clearly understood that they needed to play better as well. But I thought that was an interesting perspective. We'll obviously have a much easier time this week against UTEP, and then Vanderbilt, who's respectable this year, but still not at the Georgia level of things, and the teams that Tennessee at least hopes to play in the playoffs. But we'll have to see how that defensive line responds after probably its weakest performance of the season. We'll also see tonight what the playoff committee thinks of Tennessee. Where exactly are they going to fit in the picture? I think it's safe to say, maybe not safe to say, but I think they'll probably be a top 12 team. But of course, that doesn't necessarily mean you're in the playoff picture. And we'll have to see what they do with Indiana after this week, assuming that they lose to Ohio State. We'll have to see what they do with the BYU team that's not only coming off a loss, but also didn't look good the week before and maybe should have lost to Utah as well. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that they're going to have to figure out. Is the ACC and Big 12 both one-bid teams? Does Notre Dame take another loss? There's a lot of questions that'll be answered tonight with where things stand, but then also this upcoming week and the week after as things really get finalized. In Tennessee, man, couldn't be really any more on the bubble. It feels like a 50-50 if they're in or out, but we'll get kind of the first thoughts from the committee tonight. We'll have coverage over at VolReport.com. Also, the men's basketball team making a trip over to the Bahamas, opening things up with Virginia on Thursday. Another nice ACC test away from home for them after they passed the one against Louisville with flying colors earlier in the month. And the women's basketball team getting a break, but they've had quite the run on the recruiting trail. Talked with Lauren Hurst to get her thoughts on the Lady Vols after she announced her commitment to play what she intends to be both basketball and volleyball here at Tennessee, the 5th commit of that class for the Lady Vols. So everything Tennessee Athletics, we have you covered over at VolReport.com. Links to everything you need is in the description. Thank you for watching.